Hey you guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a small business Q&A. It is 5 years since I opened Cold Brew Crystals, and it's been 1 year since I quit my job and have been selling crystals online. So I wanted to do a Q&A for you guys. And before we get started, I do have a Patreon that you can join where I'm active in the Discord 24/7 to answer all of your small business questions. So if you want to join and hang out with me over there, I will leave it linked in the description box down below. But without further ado, let's get started with your questions. So I asked you guys over on Instagram what small business questions you had for me. So those are the questions we'll be answering today. But if you have any more questions, you can leave them in the comment section down below. All right. Question number 1, where do you first start? This is a big one. I think the first thing you need to do is understand if you actually want to sell crystals and be a crystal business, or if you just like buying crystals and getting fulfilled in that way, because having a business is a lot of work. You have to worry about the taxes, the legal part of it. You have to worry about the hustle, the marketing, the social media. You'll be working more than you work in a 9 to 5. So I would really look into making sure this is something you 1000% want to do. And I only say this because I've had Patreon for the last 4 years, and I've seen a lot of crystal shops start and leave before they even picked a name because this is a lot of work, and I would definitely make sure you have a basic understanding of small business taxes. And that could be hiring a CPA or getting QuickBooks. I would make sure you have a ability how to create content, whether that's going on YouTube and looking up how to do it, whether that's practicing on your personal account before you actually start a business, and make sure you're comfortable being in front of the camera. I would make sure you understand your budget and your pricing and who you're marketing to. There's a lot to figure out. So if you do want a friend in doing that, make sure to join my Patreon because I dive into that a lot more. And there's a lot of brand new crystal shops there that are there to help and support you. And that's the other thing. Find yourself a community, because if you do this alone, it is so incredibly difficult. Next question is, did people encourage you or were they doubtful? Honestly, I didn't really tell anyone I was doing this. I just did it. I'm the type of person that if I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it, and I don't really care what people think. I've always been that way. So, I mean, if I told people I'm going to sell rocks on the internet and they don't like it, I mean, that's their problem, not mine. So, I mean, no, I didn't really have anyone second guess me because nobody cared, which is great. It allowed me time and space to grow and learn. Top 5 underrated crystals in your opinion. I mean, if you guys have been watching my content, you know I've been super obsessed with Mookaite recently. So stunning. I think obsidian and the rainbow silver sheen kind of vein, those specialty obsidians, I think that's super underrated. I think materials from other countries that aren't just quartz, like quantum quattro is super underrated, like Himalayan quartz. I think some of those more specialty quartz are underrated just simply because they're not very popular. One of the other things I'm learning is a little underrated is fluorite, because it comes in so many different varieties from so many different countries, and it can look so many different ways. And I think it's one of those super must-have crystals for everyone's collection. I'm also a big fan of combo minerals, so minerals that combine with other minerals that make a unique combination. So like watermelon tourmaline with citrine would be one, or chlorite and quartz would be one, or pyrite and bloodstone. You know, those kind of minerals. I'm a big fan of combo minerals because we don't know when it will occur again, if ever. So it makes it kind of rare, and you get the best of both worlds. Favorite crystal at the moment? I have way too many, but I think right now my favorite is my big purple rose quartz sphere. She is the biggest, most expensive piece I have in my collection, and I adore her. Any advice on sourcing expensive material? How do you properly source statement pieces? This is a really good one. You have to find the vendors who have the wherewithal to have those pieces, and that means they have lots of experience. They themselves have a good level of taste. They have access to those materials. They have experience with handling large pieces. I think you can find a lot of vendors who specialize that at gem shows, and I really advocate for new beginners or experienced shops to go to gem shows because you can make some amazing connections and see some amazing pieces. Now, gem shows tend to be more expensive, but it takes years to find good suppliers, and I get a lot of questions around suppliers. I did make a video on how I find my suppliers, so I'll link that down below if you guys want to check that out. But it really just takes time, patience, and knowing what you want is the biggest thing, because I think a lot of people get into the crystal business and they don't know what they want, or they don't know what they're looking for, so they just start buying things, and then they get crystals and they're like, why did I buy this? I don't know how to sell this. So I think it's knowing what you want and then finding the vendors who meet those needs. And there are millions of vendors out there. They're easy to find when you know where to look. Okay, this next question. I started my Etsy shop about 8 months ago. I feel a bit stuck. Is it a good idea to start Instagram story sales? Yeah. I would say the more visibility you give your business, the more success you'll have. I think Etsy is an amazing platform to do a lot of the marketing for you for a really cheap price, but you can't solely rely on Etsy. There is an element of social media that is required to be successful. And I know a lot of people have argued with me and said that they don't need social media or they don't need to do social media. And I don't know a shop who has been successful long-term without social media. And social media is such a tool if you learn and master it. And I think story sales are a great way to move product very quickly. Now, the one thing you have to have is an audience. So before you start story sales, you want to build up your audience. And by doing that, you'll be able to get people who want to buy. But building an audience takes a lot of time. It took me 3 to 4 years to build an audience, and that audience has changed over the 3 to 4 years. So you really want to take your time and grow your audience, and you have to do that in a way that's authentic to you, because if you try to build an audience based on what other people or other shops are doing, it's not going to feel authentic. But you can absolutely run story sales with small amount of followers. It's a great way to practice how to do it, how to list them, how to get people to pay, the rules and policies you want to put in place around it. Practice makes perfect. So it's great to start even if you only sell one thing or nothing, but it's good to get into the practice of doing it, so then when you do have a bigger audience, all the kinks are worked out. The next question is, what got you into crystals? I've always been a collector of natural things. When I was little, I used to collect acorns and small rocks. A big one was fossils and shark teeth. I always felt very drawn to that. I would spend hours on the beach over spring break looking for shark teeth. And then I found there was more fossils, and my parents would take me to museums and I would see all these rocks and crystals, and I was like, whoa, I just didn't know that you could actually make a career out of it. I think 20 years ago, selling rocks online was pretty impossible. I mean, I know there have been people selling crystals online for a long time, but I mean, even the idea of it didn't exist when I was 5, because the internet wasn't a thing when I was 5. So as I kind of saw people starting to get into live sales started to be popular, I want to say about 5 years ago. And one of the first live sales that I attended was Celestial Tree on Instagram, who is still in business today, and the Crystal Fairy. I was actually at her very first live sale 5 years ago, and the whole experience was really exciting. And I saw these amazing women selling rocks online, and I was like, I can do that. Why don't I do that? So I went to a gem show and learned and absorbed and watched and practiced and decided I was going to do it and figured it out. And I know that sounds very simple, but it was learning every day how to source, learning every day how to grow my social media, learning every day how to budget, learning every day how to sell, learning every day how to list on Etsy. I consumed my life with learning how to do this by watching other people, by figuring it out, by making mistakes, buying all the wrong things, And eventually you learn how to get good at something by doing. So I think doing is the best way to learn. But that's what got me into crystals when I was a kid, was just picking up stuff that I thought was pretty or cool. I know I delineated from the question. The next question is, do you have a mentor or do you just learn as you want? I do not have a mentor, but I am a mentor to many shops. When I first started selling crystals, it wasn't really a big thing. It was very pre-peak. So there wasn't a lot of people out there doing it and or doing it well. So when I first started talking about it on YouTube, I started to get a really big interest in people asking me how I do this and where did I start. So that's when I started making YouTube content around what I was doing and how I was doing it. And obviously there are a million ways to run your own business. There are a million ways to sell crystals. So that's kind of how I became other people's mentors, as people came to me and were like, hey, how do I do this? Or how did you start? Where did you start sourcing? Or these are the things I'm struggling with, or where my Patreon was born, because I would get hundreds of Instagram DMs asking me the same thing, and I couldn't spend 5 minutes answering hundreds of people's questions. So that's when I was like, I'll make a Patreon. And then I started making content for others to consume and absorb, and that's how my community was built. So I don't have a mentor for crystals, but I do now have a mentor for personal growth and improving myself, because now that my business is strong, I need myself to be strong. So I've been working on myself a lot because I've dedicated the last 5 years to this business. And now I want to take a step into being more about me and self-growth. So not a crystal mentor, but a life coach. Yes, I do have. Okay, the next question. What was your favorite part in the process and what is your least favorite part? Ooh, this is a good one. My least favorite part is definitely the taxes and the bookkeeping, because I am not a very analytical number person. That feels like it takes me a long time. It feels like it makes my brain have to work extra hard. So I do now have a CPA who manages the self-employed part of it, because you have to remember, when you're a small business and you're making a small amount of money, it's easy to manage. But when you start to grow and make more money and have more sources of income and have money going in and out all the time, it's a lot, and you have to make sure you're setting money aside for your retirement. Make sure you're paying yourself. Make sure you're paying taxes. And when you make more money, you have to pay more taxes. So how do we avoid having to pay more taxes? So that's what you need a CPA for. I love this quote: do what you do best and hire the rest. And that is what I've been trying to do. So CPA to help with taxes. And I think my favorite part of the process is photographing. I've always loved taking pictures. I could take pictures for hours. And the nice thing about crystals is you don't really have to make them look pretty. They already look pretty. You just have to enhance their beauty and put them online for people to buy. And I do love the sourcing part. I love going to gem shows. I love creating content. I think I love everything around this business. I love that I can control all of it, and the creative part of it, I have the final say. I love that part of it. The order packing part can be a little hard, just because it's a lot of making sure I don't miss anything, making sure stuff is organized, making sure I'm not packing orders for too long because my back starts to hurt. So there are definitely parts of it that take more strategy and more parts of it that come naturally to me. The next question: what helped you grow your business the most? I think sharing my journey helped me grow. And when I first started, I didn't 100% know what I was doing. And I think that's the beauty of it. But when things worked, I shared my process and I shared my journey, and other people really love that. And when I first started, I really talked about how to start a crystal business and how to spot fake crystals, and showed very little bit of the business side of how I do things. And the first part of my growth was based on people who wanted to do what I wanted to do. And now I'm on a different path of now my YouTube channel is more about my customers versus the people who want to do what I want to do, because now I have a Patreon dedicated for those people who want to be a part of my community and want to be in a tiny little group with me one-on-one. And the YouTube channel is more dedicated for those who want to buy from me and want to watch their orders being packed and want to see the process of going to the gem shows. And it's more about storytelling and crystals than about teaching people, but both have helped me in this journey. But I do want to make it more about my customers now and less about how to coach, because I feel like I'm at a level now where coaching isn't as fulfilling and selling and bringing you guys exciting crystals is more fulfilling. How do you vet a wholesaler? This is something you learn over time, but some of the quick tips I have is check their photos and make sure that they're not stolen photos. I sometimes ask for references. Like, you can ask for other crystal shops who bought from them. You can ask for references. Another thing is, how do they communicate with you? Are they super pushy? Are they able to dedicate time to you? And do you guys have the same level of taste? I think some of the best wholesalers I have now are because I made sure that we have the same eye for things, because I've had wholesalers in the past who I love dearly, but our eyes don't match. And I think making sure you have a supplier who has the same level and expectation of quality and taste as you do, that takes time though. You have to work with them. And, sometimes it's getting on video calls with them. Sometimes it's just building a relationship with them. Sometimes it's meeting them at gem shows. Relationships are so key in this business, and it takes time to grow relationships. So when you have a relationship, you build trust. So I think it's really important to build those and nurture those relationships. And as you grow, you want your suppliers to grow with you. And if they're not growing with you, then it's time to move on and find better suppliers. But I think it's something you always have to challenge yourself to source bigger and better. When you start, your sourcing is all over the place because you don't know what your customers want. You don't know what you want. You don't know what's going to sell. You don't know what's not going to sell. And what I back when I first started is not what I'm buying today. So it's a process of evolution of who you are and your budget and your taste level and your knowledge. All of that is going to change how you source and who you vet and who you work with. What was your biggest fear and how did you overcome it? I think my biggest fear was that I wasn't going to be able to make enough money to sustain myself and do this full time. And that was very much not reality. I think I had a lot of limiting beliefs around money, and I talk about this in my money manifestation video. So if you want to go watch that, I highly recommend it, especially if you have a lot of limiting beliefs around money or around self-esteem or around confidence. I always knew that I could do this, but there was something stopping me, and that was that limiting belief. So I think manifestation is so important. Positivity is so important. Like, the biggest reason you stop yourself is you. People get in their own way more than anything else. So if you step out of the way and let yourself do it, you will do it. You will be successful. And I'm proof of that. I never thought in a million years that I would quit my job and sell crystals online and make the money I'm making. And I don't even have to work 8-hour, 10-hour days. Sometimes I work an hour. Sometimes I work for 4 hours. Like, I'm my own boss, and freedom and ability to do and create what I want to make is worth it. And I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of discipline. It's a lot of doing what makes you uncomfortable. It's a lot of doing what's hard, but it's about doing. Like, you have to just do it. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to wait till next year, or I'm going to wait until this, or I'm going to wait until that, or I'm going to wait until I'm happier. I'm going to wait until I have this. Like, you'll be waiting forever. Like, you just need to do it. Like, just do it. And if you fail, it's okay. Get back up again and try again. I think that's the hardest, that's what I said at the beginning, is you have to make sure you want this. Because if you don't want it and you think you want it, it's going to be really hard to get up and do it every day. Like, I am so grateful that I wake up every day and get to do this. Even if it's taxes, I'm so grateful that I get to do that instead of sitting in an office somewhere, twiddling my thumbs, making $40 an hour. Like, that's just not it for me. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. This didn't happen overnight. This is 5 years of grinding, 5 years of showing up on YouTube every week. It was 5 years of hard work, dedication. There wasn't a day that I didn't work on my business in some capacity, whether that was social media, sourcing, content creation, photographing, listing, being a part of my community, being here for you guys. Like, it was all day, every day. And I think some of the life coaching I'm doing is working on how to step back and take care of myself and let my business work for me now, because I've spent the last 5 years working for it, but I've grown it to a place where it can work for me now. So I need to step back and take care of myself. And I think that's the balance, right? Is making sure you don't overdo it and get to a state where you're burnt out and then you can't function and you're in a freeze response. That is the absolute worst case scenario. So it is very difficult to do all these things, and it takes a lot of self-work to achieve. What was the biggest challenge? I think just not knowing what you're doing is a really hard challenge, but I think finding a community who can help you is key, and that's why I have a community. That's why I have a private community. That's why I have a Patreon. It's to help people figure this out, because it's not easy. And when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. I just put my head down and tried everything. And there's things I definitely would have done differently if I would have had a community of women who had advice or knew what that crystal name was, or knew what countries are better to source from, or what the best budget to start it, or where to get my stickers, or where to get my shipping supplies, or, how to manage photographing crystals. Like, there's so many things that I just trial and error. And I had a full-time job, so I didn't need to worry as much about finances. I don't have kids, so I didn't need to worry about anything else but myself and my success. So I had a lot going for me to help me, but that's why I created a Patreon, was to be able to offer a place for crystal shop beginners in their first week, before they've even started, in their first month, in their first year, to have a place to come, to have people help them through this process and help with some of those questions that there's no answers to online. So it's really a community meant to help you navigate, and that's where that was born and why that was born. What would you do differently when starting a crystal shop? I mean, not to say that I did everything right or wrong. I think I would be a lot more careful with budget and taxes, because if you're not paying attention to that from January 1st of each year, you have to go back and retrace your steps and figure out your spending. So I would start with the difficult stuff of figuring out how to manage the money because the other stuff is fun. I would make sure I had a good grasp of taxes, or hired somebody, or got QuickBooks from day one, had a separate bank account from day one, because that stuff is the weeds that a lot of people don't understand and it's very complicated and difficult. And I think figuring out when this went from a hobby to a business was very confusing for me. So it's a lot of navigating things you don't know. So I think for sure one of the biggest thing would be the finance part of it, because if you don't know how much money you're spending, or how much money you're making, or what's going in and what's coming out, and what's an expense and what's a personal expense, it makes it really messy, and it makes it really frustrating and scary when you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars a week. Like, what's going where? How am I paying myself? What's coming in my pocket at the end of the day? Like, if you don't have your finances down, it makes the rest of this so much more stressful and hard to manage. And I think the other thing is, I wouldn't second guess myself so much with social media. I think there were preconceived notions I had. I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I have to make it look like this, or I have to do what that crystal shop's doing to make sales. No, you don't. You have to do your own thing, and you have to be authentic to you. But the thing is, you have to show up every single week. And I think a lot of people show up for a week and then disappear for a month, or show up for 6 months and disappear for a long time, and then they come back and they're like, hey guys, and everyone's like, oh, I forgot about you. So being consistent is the most important thing. You have to show up for you if you want people to show up for you, and you have to show up in whatever way that is, but you have to figure that out pretty quickly. So anyways, I think that's where I'll leave this video today. Hopefully this was helpful. And if you guys want more insight into, now that I've been doing this for 5 years and I've quit my job and I'm fully financially free because of this, let me know. Because I think the hardest part about when I started and versus now is when I was first started, starting. So many people were in that place with me when they were first starting, but now that I'm at a different level, it's harder for me to always relate to someone who's first starting again, because we're in two different places and at two different levels and two different budgets and two different experiences, and everyone has a different walk of life. So highly recommend my Patreon if you have wanted to start a crystal business, have a crystal business and you're struggling, have a crystal business and feel alone and want a community of women and some men to support you, be there for you. We just had a private live sale with all of my crystal girlies, and that was so fun. So if you just want a group of girls to empower you and be there for you, I find it so incredibly helpful. I am so incredibly grateful for my Patreon members, because not only do I help them, but they help me. And I have tough days too. So it's nice to have a community to go to and be like, hey guys, like, what do you think about this situation? Like, I don't know what to do. And by helping other people, it helps feed the community and it helps the energy and it helps you grow and it helps them grow. It's a very symbiotic relationship. So anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I know I've been wanting to film this Q&A really long time. I've been trying to get my filming set up down here so I don't have to rely on the sun. So yeah. Thanks for hanging out. I hope that was helpful, inspiring, real, and feel free to join my Patreon. I'll be so excited and happy to see you there. Thanks for hanging out, and make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. We're getting so close to 50K. Woo! What a big accomplishment. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next one. Love you lots. Bye. Hey, question for you. Have you been thinking about starting a crystal business, don't know where to start, or feel a lack of community? Well, guess what, you guys? I have a Patreon that has access to a private community and Discord server for just $18 a month. You can learn from other businesses, make friends, learn along with me, and topics include pricing, shipping, Shopify, Etsy, and so much more. So head over and join us on Patreon for just $18 a month. Everything is linked in my bio.